miło powitać Państwa na konferencji Kryzys i opór społeczny w Europie Środkowo-Wschodniej, tutaj na Uniwersytecie Warszawskim, w imieniu Uniwersytetu Warszawskiego. Nasza konferencja została przygotowana przez pismo i debaty Journal of Contemporary Central and Eastern Europe oraz Fundację Róży Luksemburg. Bardzo dziękujemy Fundacji za to wsparcie finansowe. W naszej konferencji weźmie udział międzynarodowy zespół badawczy z kilkunastu krajów. Celem jest przyjrzenie się transformacji Europy Środkowo-Wschodniej po 1989 roku. Będziemy badać zmiany ideologiczne, kulturalne, społeczne koszty transformacji, dynamikę protestów społecznych, sytuację grup mniejszościowych, alternatywy wobec neoliberalizmu, zmiany polityczne, w szczególności zmiany polityczne dotyczące lewicy i również skrajnej prawicy. Będziemy się przyglądać temu, jak społeczeństwa regionu reagują na obecny kryzys, jak wyglądają debaty polityczne nad obecnym kryzysem i jakie są proponowane metody rozwiązania. Będziemy o tym dyskutować zarówno omawiając sytuację w konkretnych krajach, jak też dokonując porównań między krajami i starając się uchwycić pewne prawidłowości dla całego regionu. Szczególnie ważna wydaje mi się ta konferencja w polskim kontekście, gdzie refleksja nad otaczającą nas rzeczywistością jest bardzo uboga, niemal nieobecna. Więcej wiemy czasami, co dzieje się po drugiej stronie oceanu, niż o tym, co dzieje się obecnie w Polsce. I zupełnie nieobecna jest wiedza na temat przemian w innych krajach naszego regionu. Myślę więc, że konferencja będzie dla nas wszystkich owocna i wiele się od siebie nawzajem nauczymy. Chciałabym przedstawić naszych mówców dzisiejszych. Zacznie pan dr Lubosz Blacha, słowacki filozof i politolog pracujący w Słowackiej Akademii Nauk. W 2009 roku opublikował książkę Powrót do Marksa, która została nagrodzona przez Słowacki Fundusz Literacki w kategorii Najlepsza książka z zakresu humanistyki i nauk społecznych. Głównym zagadnieniem tej pracy jest filozofia systemu bezpieczeństwa społecznego. Lubosz Blacha jest też członkiem Słowackiego Parlamentu i reprezentuje w nim partię socjaldemokratyczną SMER, co oznacza kierunek.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear comrades, I really thank the organizers of this conference that they invited me to Warsaw, and I'm really happy and glad to be here and to speak about Central Europe, the crisis and the resistance movement. Though I am the member of Parliament for Social Democratic Party, which is not very, I would say, part of the resistance movement, as you know, but I am on the left wing of this party, and in Slovakia it's the only party which is on the left wing, or kind of left wing political spectrum. So I will try to speak about philosophy, but especially about practical alternatives, because I think that's why we are here now. I will not speak a lot about Slovakia, because first of all, I don't think that that the problems we are facing now are about our nation states, but these problems are much more global. And the second reason is that I cannot be very free as a politician to speak about Slovakia, so rather I will speak about general issues. So, I will speak about global capitalism and the alternatives. I think we all face, not only in the Central Europe, but also in the Europe and in the world as it is, we all face global capitalism, globalization or global capitalism. And I don't think that there are some solutions which can be traced or which can be found on the national level. Global capitalism is in economy, is spread by the ideology of neoliberalism or neoconservatism. The main ways how this ideology function is the triad of liberalization, privatization, and deregulation of the trade. So these processes, these economic processes, brings to us the winners and the losers. The winners of globalization, of this neoliberal globalization, are the multinational or transnational corporations. The losers are the workers, especially in the third world or in the countries like Honduras, like Latin America, Indochina or China, the workers in the developmental world. These people, these workers, work in these zones of free market or in these maquiladoras, who use the Spain word, like the slaves, really like the slaves, and there are no social rights, no trade unions, there is no limitation of exploitation, and I think that this trend, this process will come to Europe in some decade or in some years. We need to be prepared for it, because global capitalism is not about stagnation. It's a process. It's a movement towards pure exploitation of workers, and I think it will come to Europe as well. So this is the problem. This is the problem, and I think we can face this problem also today. The exploitation of workers is growing, and the multinational corporation and their power is growing as well. This is economy. I will not speak a lot about economy because I am not economist, and probably some lecturers or some speakers will speak about economy more. I will tell you more about political and cultural influences and consequences of global capitalism. Because I think that globalization erodes the process of democracy automatically and spontaneously. There is no need of democracy in global capitalism. Global capitalism or globalization or corporations needs very automatic and non-thinking working power. They don't need people who think. They don't need people who are trying to be free. I think the ideal model for global capitalism is Pinochet Chile. It's autocratic regime or totalitarian regime which can eliminate critical masses, which can eliminate trade unionists, which can eliminate really free thinking workers. They are going to concentration camps, or they are like cancelled, and capital is free to exploit their power. This is the ideal model of global capitalism. But okay, you cannot say that let's make in Europe kind of Pinochetian Chile. It's impossible now because there is some culture, there is some civil society. So you need to make up kind of more cheerful fascism, not like typical fascism of Hitler or years. You need to make up some cheerful fascism. It's like, okay, you are free, everybody is free, we have some formal civil society, you have some formal rights, formal freedoms, but in reality, you have no power to change the things. You have really no power. Your freedom is about like being in the work, in your job, like 12 or 14 hours a day, then coming back to home, watching the American soap operas, like brainwashing, and then sleeping, and then again going to work. This is our freedom, and this is what global corporation needs. Discipline, very automatic working power without thinking, cheerful fascism. I don't think that this cheerful fascism is possible without some cultural hegemony of kind of consumism. In sociology, there is a nice term for this: McDonaldization. You need to be your mind need to be diverse. You need to be really manipulated by all these really soap operas, all these stupidities in the TVs and TV shows. I think Noam Chomsky, maybe you know him, probably you know him, wrote about this. This process is very good, about this media and cultural manipulation, about indoctrination and so on. So I will not speak about this a lot, but the principle is that you need to create the people who don't think. And the second cultural issue is that you need the people who believe in ideology of social Darwinism. I think this is the main principle of global capitalism, social Darwinism. It means that the more able or the more strong people should be alive, or the less strong or the weaker elements should be eliminated. It's a social Darwinism. It's like in the nature. It's like strong animals, predators will kill the defenseless animals. These people will tell you, okay, this is good because it's natural. It's like in nature. But in reality, it means that the consequences are very brutal for the weak people, for the excluded. You maybe remember from history the most deviant form of social Darwinism is Hitlerism. It's like Hitler said, okay, there are some races which are weak or which are bad, so let's go to eliminate. How to eliminate them? Okay, we can use the state to eliminate them, to send them to concentration camps, to gas camps, and so on. Now we have a different kind of social Darwinism. There is no state to eliminate the people who are not good for us. We need the market for this. This is the different kind of social Darwinism. It's neoliberal social Darwinism. It's market social Darwinism. So the people who are strong, the corporations, the businessmen, the people who can see only the profit, they are strong in capitalism. They will alive. They will be alive. They will survive. The people who are weak, especially the workers, especially the people who are excluded from the modern society, they will be eliminated by market. They will not be sent to the concentration camp. They will be just sent to the underground of the society. They will be like maybe dying from the hunger or be in the really position of homeless and so on. So they will be really eliminated from the society. Well, this is economic. This is economic, culture, and politics of global capitalism. We can discuss it more later, but I will push it forward. What are the alternatives? I mean, left-wing alternatives, because there are also alternatives of right-wingers, and they are not so nice. They don't want this cheerful fascism. They want to come back to this really Hitlerian fascism. So I think there are some progressive alternatives we are going to discuss. On theoretical level, there are many alternatives. On theoretical level, you can find many alternatives in modern Marxism. You have structural Marxism, you have critical theory, you have post-Marxism or post-structural Marxism, you have analytical Marxism. In theory, I was most attracted by analytical Marxism, and my books are about analytical Marxism. But I don't think that this academic Marxism is the answer for these political fights, because analytical Marxism and many Marxisms of this kind are about meta-theory. It's about theory of kind of philosophical theory. I like it. I really like it. We can discuss it indeed. But for our purpose, I think we don't need now these debates, because there are no practical alternatives within these Marxisms. Or if they are, I will mention them later. As regards practical left, or I mean political left, we can see many cleavages and many divisions, and we can see no common united ideology, no common united movement. I will mention only few cleavages, few splits. I mean theoretical, ideological splits. We can see the split, and it's very present also in Slovakia and also I think in Central Europe. The split between the old left and the new left. Old left, which is with its concentration on the economic issues, and the new left with the concentration on the cultural issues, post-materialist issues, like the fight for the rights of minorities, either sexual, either cultural, and so on. You can the question of the protection of the environment and so on. So this division between old left and new left is quite strong in Central Europe in these times. I think in Slovakia very much. There is also the division between in political lines between mainstream political parties, left-wing political parties, so kind of elitarian party democracy, and on the other side there is a street radical democratic left of social forums, social movements, and so on. Again, it's a cleavage. It's a cleavage. There are many prejudices between these people and these groups. I'm part of both these groups, or was part of both these groups, so I can know it. People from the streets, they don't believe the people in the politics. People in the politics don't believe in the people in the streets. This is the cleavage. This is the real cleavage in the practical life of the left. Then you can see the cleavage in the environment or in the ecological movement. You have the realos, like pragmatic, more moderate protectors of ecology, and you have the fundis, like fundamental fighters for the rights of the nature. This cleavage is not very present in Slovakia. I don't know, probably not in Central Europe, because in general the questions of ecology are not very relevant in our politics in comparison with Western Europe. I think in Slovakia it's absolutely non-existent. In Poland, I think as well, and in Czech Republic it's a very small party. I don't think it is even progressive. So these green issues are not very present in Central Europe, but it will come. I hope that it will come, and it has to come. But for now, it's not the issue. But there are other issues. For example, and I think this dispute is very strong now in Slovakia, and I think in Central Europe, but also in the Western Europe. The liberal left, and maybe I can say conservative left, but I don't mean that the people need to be conservatives, these left fingers, but not liberal left. It's very, very close to this division between new left and old left. This liberal left, the main issue for liberal left is issue of culture, issue of rights of minorities. Very often I heard the issue of rights for gays, but it's also about rights for women, rights for other minorities on the other side. And this issue of the left fingers, liberal left fingers, is typical for, in Slovakia especially, I don't know how it is in your countries, in Slovakia it is typical for the petty bourgeoisie intellectuals who are quite well educated, who are in quite good positions, but for typical workers it is not an issue. For typical workers who are not well educated, who are living in the regions, in the villages, in these rural areas, I can say you the truth, in Slovakia this issue is not relevant. They need the issues like economy, social issues, social rights, and so on. So, especially in Slovakia, the issue of the new left or issue of the liberal left is typical for population of cities, well educated, and I would say petty bourgeoisie, and the issues of old left and economic issues are typical for the workers. There are also new split and geopolitical split, and maybe it's very strong in Central Europe. Now, as regards the issue of Russia and the position towards Russia, it's a big split in left-wing movement. In Slovakia, absolutely. In Slovakia, you have majority of left-wingers who are against Western imperialism, and this story of Ukraine is interpreted as a story of Western imperialism against Russia. But you have also the people who are afraid much more of Russian imperialism, which are against Europe. And this split is very present. We can discuss it, but for now I think that it's enough to say that this split is present, and I think it's present also in Czech Republic, also in Poland. I don't know how it is in Poland, I know how it is in Czech Republic. So it's present in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Hungary, and maybe it is true also in the Western Europe. So there are so many splits, and I think the most important split is the last one I will mention, and it is the split between alter globalists and anti-globalists. Because there are many alternative positions towards globalization, as I defined before. And you can be anti-globalist, okay? You can refuse the globalization as a process. You can say, okay, let's come back to the national state, and let's come back to a small national state which will be regulating the economy and which will regulate the foreign capital and so on. Or you can be after globalist. They say, okay, it's impossible today to come back to the national stage. It's impossible. You need to have more global, more multinational, or more bigger units to fight global capital. Because it's impossible to fight it from the position of nation state. From the position of Slovakia, 5 billion countries, it's impossible really. But these people say it's impossible also even from France, for Germany, because global capital is so big power. It's so big power that you cannot face it like national state alone. So I don't think that this dispute can be ignored, because this dispute between outer globalist and entire globalist is very, very important for the future of the left-wing ideology. Well, and I will continue with some realistic alternatives which can be traced in this political ideology of left. I'm trying to make the best, to do the best in Slovak politics to attract the people for these alternatives, but it's not so easy, because I will say why. First of all, I found a very interesting alternative in the works of analytical Marxists, and it's an alternative of so-called economic democracy. It's an alternative of the system of cooperatives. Cooperative, if it is the firm or company which is owned by the workers or by the employees. There is a theory of, maybe you know him, David Schweikart. It's a very well-known American economist or philosopher, and his theory of economic democracy is based on the system of these cooperatives and the market, regulated market. These cooperatives are inside the microeconomy, inside the company, the profit is distributed very fairly, and outside, in the whole economy, the economy is very much regulated by the welfare state. This is the first alternative towards this global capitalism, but it's not very easy to find a way how to compose it in reality. I'm trying to make the best, to do the best for the economic democracy, because it really exists in the European Union now. I mean, there are many cooperatives. In Poland, I think there are many cooperatives. In Slovakia, there are many cooperatives, especially in the countries like France or Italy. But these cooperatives function in the market global capitalism. So they don't function like good socialist power. They function like typical capitalists. And in the European Union, this economic democracy is labeled social economy. It's labeled like social economy. And it's quite spread by the European Commission. If you are speaking with the commissioners, I'm doing a lot, they will tell you, okay, social economy is great, it's a good alternative, but it's great because it's like 10% of economy, European economy. If our alternative is, it should be European vision for whole economy. But for the European Commission, it's only the curiosity, which can be supported, but not very much. So this is the first alternative. I'm trying to do the best for the cooperatives, for the economic democracy. Also, there are different kinds of economic democracy, not only the cooperatives. It's a kind of economic or political participation of normal people as regards the creating of public budgets. This project is labeled participatory budgets, maybe you notice. It's even present also in Bratislava, in capital city. Only 1% or less is decided by the people, but it's there. In Porto Alegre, in Brazil, the whole budget of Porto Alegre is decided by the people. So it's good alternative, and I think we should fight for this. But again, this project is very, very modest in the European Union, and I don't think that in a few years we can make some big successes. The second alternative, which I was quite attracted by, is the alternative of Van Parijs project of basic income. Maybe you know this. Universal basic income for everybody. It was quite interesting debate because there was the initiative for European citizens initiative in whole Europe about this basic income. It means that everybody should have some basic income. for example, from the Brussels, from the European Union, and every citizen of the European Union should have some kind of basic income, and you don't need to work, you don't need to desert this. You desert this only because you are a human being. It's a basic income. It's an interesting idea, but paradoxically, it is interesting also for the neoliberals. Why? Because neoliberals are saying, okay, let's cancel all the social fees, all the social benefits, and replace this with this basic income. But it's unfair. It's unfair. For example, the millionaire will get the same income, basic income, like the worker or like the unemployed persons, and it's you know that it must be unfair because it's digressive. But socialists are telling you that, okay, we don't want to replace this. We just want to supplement the social benefits with this basic income. And this idea is, I think, progressive and good. But as you probably know, this citizens' initiative was not successful. And there is no chance to make the same process, I think, in a year or 2 years after this failure. So again, we have the alternatives, which is not very vocal and not very living in the European discussions today. But okay, let's work with this. Basic income is quite interesting alternative. Then, third alternative I can speak about. I don't know how many times I have. 5 minutes, okay, so I can continue. It's an alternative which can be traced in the books of Antonio Negri and Michael Hart. It's a protection or some spread of the sphere of commons. Commons is not public or collective ownership, it's not a private ownership, it's a kind of commons. Maybe you know the Antonio Negri's books, how he defines this, and I don't think that this is the place I need to explain it very deeply. I will rather concentrate on the practical issue. Well, how can we do this? Because in theory it's a very good project. In theory, when I was reading Antonio Negri's works, I was like amazed. But in politics, okay, what to do? How to do this? How to do this? When you face global capitalism and you have different problems, and sometimes the state is the only chance how to face the global capitalism. I don't like state. I don't like the bureaucracy. I don't like the authoritarian mechanisms and formalism in the state. But the alternative is kind of non-existent social democratic movement which is based on this protection of commons. I don't see the alternatives on the street. Yet there are some nice projects, but tell me as a politician, how can I help them? In Slovakia it's very hard. In Slovakia it's about 50 people, really. It's about 50 people who are attracted by this vision, and with 50 people in the street you cannot make the protection of commons. So this is again the big story. I don't think that this is impossible to help these projects, but we are in the start, we are in the beginning. And in Central Europe we are absolutely in the beginning. Maybe in France, in Spain, in Greece, they are more progressive, but in Central Europe, after 25 years of brutal, vulgar capitalism, which was typical for 19th century Western Europe, but for us it was reality in 25 years. I think that we need to find again the confidence for some public discourse, and it's not so easy to make some really progressive revolutions as regards the project like Commons is. But yes, I'm a fan of this alternative of Commons, and I hope that we can find a way how to protect it. I think that there is a sphere where we can really help this to pursue. It's a sphere of IT. It's a sphere of the intellectual ownership, or a sphere of the web and internet, sphere of this kind of new cultural ownership of property. And in this case, we can use the fights for commons, because this is really the future. But again, I think that in our societies it's quite hard to explain to people who live in the rural society, there are workers in some local factory, that this is the future, because they have their problems. Well, and the The last issue I will mention, which is very practical, but I think the most important now, today or these days, and it's the issue of so-called TTIP. I don't know if you what's the discussion about TTIP in Poland, but in Slovakia it's absent, and in Czech Republic I know that it's very absent as well. TTIP is the transatlantic investment and trade partnership. It's a treaty between the United States and the European Union about free market, about free trade and free investment. It's, I think, the worst and biggest danger for European social model in history. TTIP is, I think, the most important issue in Germany, in France, in Spain, and in the Western Europe. In Central Europe, it's like non-existent. I was in Hungary, I was in Czech Republic, now I'm in Poland. Nobody's talking about TTIP. When I'm in Germany or France, everybody's talking about TTIP. I think maybe the reason is that we are the semi-periphery we are not the center of the you probably know the theory of Immanuel Wallerstein about the division of the world of center, semi-periphery, and periphery. Okay, there are different discourses. In center, they can speak about the TTIP because they are the players of this game. The semi-periphery is not the player of the game. We are just so much dependent on the center. So in Slovakia, we are so much dependent on Germany that we are not talking about the things we cannot influence. So this is, I think, kind of, for us, the globalization or this liberalization is kind of fate. It's like fatalist. It's okay, it will come. We can change this. So why to talk about this? This is the complex, I think, in Central Europe, that we are not talking about the issues which are really important for Central, and then it's really important. Will be important for Central, for semi-periphery and periphery as well. So TTIP. TTIP is a giant, it's huge, gigantic free trade treaty which will impose on the European Union American values and American norms. You know, America and the United States, they have their own liberal social system. It's very liberal, it's very low cost, I would say. It's not very, very progressive, and it doesn't. I don't think that it's aggressive as regards social benefits. It is, or as regards equality and the protection of environment. But it's aggressive also in the protection of, for example, of your food. And this is a big issue for the European Union. You know the company Monsanto, and you know these GMOs. This can really come to the European Union because in the United States there is no protection before this, in front of these dangers and risks. They say, okay, if they want to cancel something in their production as regards chemistry, as regards food industry, they need to prove that it is dangerous. Sometimes it's very hard to prove that something is dangerous. If there is only some suspicion, it's not enough. You need to prove this. In Europe, it's a different kind of protection. The company needs to know that it is not harmful. And this is a big difference, because the result is that in the United States, the 80% of food is done by the GMO. In European Union, it's like 5%. So this is big difference, and it will change Europe for all. This is only one story about GMOs, but other stories like social rights, like environmental rights. This TTIP, this TTIP, this trade treaty will be very dangerous for Europe, and I hope that it will not come through the European process. But I can tell you very honestly, the social democratic government in Slovakia support this. I think the social democratic government in Czech Republic support this. Germany as well, social democrats. Even the radical left is not very, especially in Slovakia, not interested in this issue. It's horrible that Central Europe is absolutely out of this real huge problems for the European Union and its future. So this is the issue. we need to protect our European social model. Okay, this is defensive, this is defensive issue. It's not like making the dreams about the new social just society, but we are in a situation that we are losing. We are losing all our grounds. And in these times, we need to concentrate on what is important. I think the most important for now, and that's why first 2 years in Parliament I was talking about cooperatives, about economic democracy, about basic income, about commons, and about all the alternatives. For now, I'm talking only about TTIP and only about the protection of our social model, because we are facing this big catastrophe, and it can be very close to us. And then, in a year, for example, it will be signed in a few months, hopefully not. In a year, we will have suddenly in the process, which will get us off our rights, and we will not be able to do anything with this as a politician. So I need to finish. So I just want to in the end say that we need to concentrate first of all on some kind of finding or looking for unity of left-wing alternatives. But on the other side, left-wing movement was ever very good in resistance. Sometimes it's not very easy to find some common grounds, but we are good in resistance. That's why alter globalist movement was so strong, because there were so many yeses, but it was one strong no. Now we need to find a common ground in a fight against TTIP. I think this is the big message of maybe my lecture, and I hope that maybe big message we need to find today in today's lasting thinking. Thank you very much.
And I will introduce our second speaker. I will speak in Polish. Profesor Katarzyny Samary, wykładowca ekonomii na Uniwersytecie Paris-Dauphine i zajmuje się następującymi zagadnieniami. Reformą gospodarczą w byłej Jugosławii i w krajach, które powstały po upadku Jugosławii, relacjami między planowaniem, rynkiem, własnością i demokracją, globalizacją i restauracją kapitalizmu w Europie Wschodniej i kryteriami efektywności w ekonomii. Chciałam też podkreślić, że profesor Katarzyna Samary jest znanym działaczem politycznym i publicystą.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with you, and I'm particularly pleased to intervene after Lubos Blaha, because I share the global intervention. I will not develop the last point, but I am involved in France in the campaign against the free trade treaty. I do believe that it is a real big stake for all of us. But I will take the other point you raised just before, that is the issue of the commons. In fact, the title of my intervention, as it was presented in the program, was the reconquest of the commons. But in fact, the original title was a little bit longer. First, I put reconquest, into, en parenthèse, bracket, yeah? To stress the idea that I will develop that it's not only a kind of a past issue, that we have to conquest something which we had in the past. It is something to be invented, to be completely, there are elements of links, not, in French we say passéiste, pastiste. It's not towards the past, but there are links with the past to be established. But it is to be completely invented in a critical approach of past failures. The other point of my title, which was suppressed to shorten it, was from Yugo nostalgia to another Europe. And I will conclude on that, not only because I studied the former post-Yugoslav movements, but because also I do believe that there is a specificity on the ongoing recent resistance, especially in Slovenia, in Bosnia and so on, which have particular conditions for us to support. And I put links from, I'm against nostalgia, but I respect it, but as I said, we are towards new elaboration. And I said to another Europe, which is close to the beginning of your speech, and I will conclude also on that, with a refusal of a false alternative. You were speaking of different dilemmas which were splitting different progressive movement, and I think that there is a wrong dilemma, which would be either national intervention or international, European, and particularly European one. I do believe that there is a political, efficient European level of intervention to win, but when I speak of Europe, I'm not speaking of European Union, I'm speaking of Europe. It's including Ukraine and Russia, and it's against the existing European Union. So this is also something I will finish on. But my main point is concentrated on the theme of the commons. The commons as something to be elaborated. I don't come to debate on with degree, Hart and so on. I think it's a collective rethinking of what is behind the notion of commons. It is also to be elaborated more through movements and reflections, collective reflections, but it is something which is a collective asset. Commons is a collective asset, immaterial or material, from nature or human creation, but with human collectives as users. And of course, there are deadlocks. It can be appropriated by rightist liberals, like you say. And it can be also appropriated by strong states, which would accept local commons, but refuse to defend social issues and rights. So, I mean, we have to elaborate also the issue of commons in a dynamic way, as thinking about different kinds of assets, of collective assets, which can be at different territorial levels articulated, and which have to be managed both by producers and users, articulating it with the public sphere, and you have to put on as a stake the socialization of the state, that is resistance to aggressive bureaucratic states or states imposing free market, which is the existing dominant state. So, this is something to be elaborated. But I want to illustrate that point as a resistance to what? A resistance to a universal issue, which is a global privatization, generalized privatization. And I will try to illustrate my point with 3 dates, so the 3 points, in order to integrate in around those 3 historical dates some other points that you have not raised. So the first date for the global program of privatization, and there again I support what you said, that we are confronted to a global enemy, if we can say, globalized capitalist system now, which began to be built at the turn of the 70s, 1970s, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And that was an answer coming from the dominant classes, the liberal ideologies, to an answer to a crisis of profit and the crisis of the world order as dominated by the US at that time, but under a situation of losing hegemony. So it was a combined political and socio-economical counteroffensive, which had privatization, generalized privatization as the main program. Privatization of social services, of all spheres, all sectors of the economy, which could not be under the control of profit and market during the other period after the Second World War, whatever be the context. So social services in general, and all factories which could have, and all sectors which could have been out of a complete control of capital and profit. So the reappropriation and depossession of people from all social gains and reappropriation of spheres for profit. That was the program in the 70s. Then I'm going fast to the second date, 1989. So 1989 was not the beginning of that counter-revolution, but it was a radicalization of it, which was accompanied by something that you didn't mention and I want to stress. You stressed the importance of the ideological hegemony, but 1989 was the opportunity to radicalize also the ideology of the end of history. The end of history, and which was a continuation of Margaret Thatcher in the 70s ideology, TINA, that there is no alternative. There is no alternative. 89, end of history. Then you have to bury all elements of the past, all revolutions, all social resistance. You have to suppress them through different means, either to ignore them or to criminalize or to reduce it, to reduce the Russian Revolution, the Yugoslav Revolution, and to reduce to repression, to reduce to Gulag and Stalinism, to say that there were no social gains out of that, and no social resistance within them. So then you have in the court just out of here 1989 and Solidarność 1980. It's the same. Solidarność is supposed to have had the kind of aspiration, and the workers in Poland are supposed to have fought for generalized privatization, which were implemented. The Prague Spring and the Autumn of Workers' Council in Prague in 68 are supposed, either ignored or supposed to be realized, implemented by only political democracy, parliamentary democracy, when it was linked with Workers' Council, which is not at all within workers' political democracy. So I mean, there is an attempt, ideological, historical attempt to suppress all progressive resistance against bureaucratic, and in favor of what was called socialism with human face, but the socialism with the reality of its emancipatory projects. I mean, in factories, in daily life, in economy, subordinated to radical democracy in the organization of the production and control of the production. And what is the issue of commons is precisely what was lacking in the past so-called socialist system, including in self-management Yugoslavia, which was already much better, but still confronted to the fact that the different reforms in the Yugoslav system and for the self-management orientation were not under the control of the people themselves, with the difficulties, with the contradictions, with the conflicts. But those difficulties wastes and so on were not dealt with by the self-managers themselves. So reforms were introduced from above and changed from above and repressed with a combination which I have no time to develop here, but which is precisely what is to be solved. That is when you have collective property of a factory and of a country in a way. Then you have to have the democratic institution mechanisms with their conflicting aspect, with their dynamic aspect, that is you have to check regularly the results and the gaps between what you had foreseen and what was implemented and so on, and a completely free possibility of expression and of organizations of different part of the population, women, different cultural communities and so on, religious, sexual, everyone have the right to resist and express dissatisfaction, and this is part of the mechanism for commons in order to establish rules and take into account problems, conflicts, discriminations when they appear, with a clear program for egalitarian project. So 1889 was a suppression of all those attempts in the past and a will to break any hope that future resistance could begin again with revolutions and with projects. So we have to find new words, of course, because of discredit of words. Socialism, communism is not clear, but we have to find the way to express a similar view of an emancipatory program with new words coming out of experience and social movements, and commons is one of them. But in 1989, something appeared on socio-economical issue which is very important to stress also. In the recent, in every commemoration, how to say, for instance, it's the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is put forward. That is like a beautiful Christmas tree, which is hiding the very obscure forest. The forest is the unification, is a privatization, which the German workers and East German population had to suffer. And the real turning point is not the fall of the Berlin Wall, which we agree with, of course, but the real problem was the social, economical, and political transformation under the domination of a capital, of the capital, which was also a transformation of the European Union. And the problem is not to concentrate and say Germany is dominating. It's not Germany. It's the old bourgeoisie with a specific German issue, certainly, but on the back of German workers. And all European bourgeoisie were using a new situation where all Eastern Europe, after 89, has been used as a kind of vanguard, field to implement radical fiscality, taxation, flat tax, reduce income for competition in the whole Europe, to reduce taxation against capital, and social dumping, that is reduction of wage radical, and austerity policy, where the Eastern European countries are playing a vanguard, negative vanguard role in implementing so-called austerity policy, which means a kind of budget where all social, when you reduce the fiscality on capital, then you reduce your income. The resistance is against those treaties. But I'm not minimizing the fight against what you say, and I mean, all I said it against the free trade, Atlantic treaties and so on. But there is a weakness, the strength and the weakness of the European treaties. What is the weakness? It is political. The European treaties, European Union is not supposed to be the same as ALENA, that is as NAFTA, that is a North American Free Trade Alliance. It's not a free trade. There is a parliament, there is a budget, there are elections, and it has been sold to East European people in the referendums. In there was a social model, and there was aspiration for the end of wars in Europe and so on. So we must take the advantages of those aspirations which are not implemented by the European Union as such. And we must, like Syriza in Greece, say, if we win in one country, it's of course with the need, sovereign need to refuse injustice of the plans which are imposed to Greece, but it is imposed not only in Greece, it is imposed everywhere. So like Syriza says, the resistance to those plans must be European. And when I say European, is European Union, but also all the countries like Ukraine, which are linked, or which want to be linked, or which are proposed to be linked with European Union under free trade radical program of destruction of their economy. So we are concerned for all that, and we have to take, to support the small points of resistance, like in Slovenia, we will have to speak in some workshop on that. The first victory in the last elections of a new party, which were claiming its initiative for democratic socialism for first time in the post-89 situation, which is a turning point in the possibility to express oneself not as an apologist of what was the Yugoslav system, but against any attempt from anti-communist, rightist currents to suppress all gains from that past, and in favor of the possibility to put in common the asset of that experience, not only for the Yugoslav people, but for the people of the world. Thank you.